Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a fascinating thesis about self-rebuilding in a world that's, well, constantly changing.
It's like hitting the refresh button on ourselves and building a future-proof toolkit.
Exactly. It's all about giving ourselves a personal upgrade.
And what really struck me about this thesis is how it goes beyond the usual self-improvement stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not just about, positive thinking or whatever. It takes this really holistic approach, exploring 5 key areas that are all connected.
5 areas. Okay, you've got my attention.
Okay.
Break it down for us. What are we diving into?
Well, first up is self-awareness.
Okay.
But we're going deeper than just, your typical journaling exercises.
Right.
Then we'll explore the power of a growth mindset, especially when it comes to dealing with setbacks.
So it's about bouncing back stronger, not just, feeling good all the time.
Exactly. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of the economic and technological challenges that are shaking things up.
Okay.
Think automation, AI, all that.
Yeah, that stuff can be kind of intimidating.
It can be, but this thesis gives us a roadmap for upskilling and staying relevant. Then we'll dive into the importance of social and emotional strength.
Right.
The power of connection, empathy, building a solid support system. We're not robots.
Right. We need those human connections, especially when things get tough.
Exactly. And finally, we'll tackle those systemic barriers, the inequalities and obstacles that can make self-rebuilding feel like an uphill battle.
Okay, so we've got a lot to unpack here. But let's start with self-awareness. What makes this thesis's approach so different?
Well, it goes beyond the surface-level advice and digs into tools like personality assessments and mindfulness practices.
So it's like getting to know yourself on a deeper level.
Right. It's about uncovering your strengths and weaknesses, even those hidden quirks you might not be aware of.
I've played around with personality tests before, but I'm curious to see how the thesis connects that to self-rebuilding.
It's all about becoming the CEO of your own life. Self-awareness gives you the data you need to make informed decisions, whether it's about your career, your relationships, or even just how you handle a stressful day.
Could you give us an example? Like, how does that actually work?
Sure. The thesis mentions someone who used the MBTI.
The Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, to understand their introversion.
Okay.
Once they realized that their need for solitude wasn't a flaw, but simply part of their personality, they were able to make choices that honored that.
So instead of forcing themselves to be the life of the party, they found ways to connect with people that felt more authentic.
Exactly. Working with your natural tendencies, not against them.
I like that.
Now, building on that self-awareness, the thesis also dives into the power of mindfulness.
Okay.
It emphasizes the practical benefits, especially in a world that's constantly bombarding us with information.
I've heard a lot about mindfulness, but I admit I haven't really explored it beyond a few meditation apps. What does the thesis say about it?
It's about training your attention to become more aware of the present moment. Your thoughts, feelings, physical sensations. This awareness can be a game changer when it comes to managing stress, making clearer decisions, even improving your relationships.
So it's not about emptying your mind or becoming some sort of Zen master.
Not at all. It's about noticing when your thoughts are spiraling out of control, recognizing those rising stress levels, and then choosing how you respond instead of just reacting on autopilot. The thesis even highlights research showing how just a few minutes of focused breathing can significantly reduce anxiety and improve focus.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Huh.
So we've got self-awareness through personality, insights, and mindfulness. What's next on our deep dive journey?
Well, let's talk about developing a growth mindset, especially when it comes to handling setbacks.
Okay.
This is about moving away from the idea that our abilities are fixed and instead embracing the belief that we can learn and grow from every experience, even the tough ones.
It's about seeing challenges as opportunities for improvement rather than proof that we're not good enough. But how do we actually cultivate that mindset? Is it just a matter of positive thinking?
It's more than just positive affirmations. The thesis highlights techniques like failure journaling, where you analyze setbacks, identify lessons learned, and brainstorm specific actions for improvement. It's like turning a failure into a case study for personal growth.
I like that. So instead of dwelling on the negative, you're actively using those experiences to level up. It's like having your own personal MBA in resilience.
Exactly. And the thesis also emphasizes the importance of seeking feedback from others. Not just when things go wrong, but as a regular practice. It's about creating a culture of continuous improvement where feedback is seen as a gift, not a criticism.
So it's about building that feedback loop into your life so you're constantly learning and evolving. Okay, so we've covered self-awareness and developing a growth mindset, but what about those economic and technological challenges? Things like AI and automation seem like they're changing the game so fast. It's hard to know how to keep up.
It's true, the pace of change can be daunting. But the thesis reminds us not to panic and instead focus on upskilling. It dives into financial literacy and continuous learning as essential tools for navigating these volatile times.
Okay, but upskilling can feel like a pretty broad term. Where do we even begin?
The thesis suggests starting with research. Identify the specific skills that are in high demand in your field or in the industry you're aiming for. There are plenty of resources, online industry reports, job postings, professional networking sites that can give you valuable clues.
So it's about being strategic, not just chasing the latest trends. Remember, the thesis mentioned an example about IBM investing heavily in employee training to stay ahead of the tech curve. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. What's fascinating about the IBM example is that they didn't just throw money at random training programs. They analyzed the emerging technologies, identified the skills gaps within their workforce, and then created targeted training programs to address those specific needs.
So it was a data-driven approach to upskilling tailored to their unique situation.
Yeah.
Did they see positive results?
Absolutely. They significantly reduced their skills gap, boosted employee productivity, and even attracted top talent in those high-demand fields. It reinforced their position as a leader in the tech industry, all because they made a strategic investment in their people.
That's incredibly inspiring. It shows that staying relevant isn't just about individual effort. It's about organizations recognizing the importance of continuous learning. Okay, so we've explored self-awareness, growth mindset, and upskilling. But we're not done yet, are we?
Not at all. Next time, we'll delve into the crucial areas of social and emotional strengths, as well as those systemic barriers that can sometimes feel insurmountable. Get ready to explore the power of connection, empathy, and advocating for a more equitable world.
Welcome back. Last time we were exploring self-awareness and developing a growth mindset.
Yeah, and we even touched on upskilling, how to stay ahead of the curve in this rapidly changing world.
Right. It's all about giving ourselves that personal upgrade. But this time I'm excited to dive into something we haven't talked about yet.
What's that?
The power of social and emotional strengths.
Ah, yes, those are often overlooked, but they're absolutely crucial for this whole self-rebuilding process.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical skills and forget that, we're not just resumes and algorithms.
Right, we're humans. We need connection. We need support.
Exactly. And this thesis really emphasizes that those connections are vital.
They're not just nice to have. They're essential for navigating challenges, building resilience, and thriving in this crazy world.
Absolutely. We've already talked about Sarah, the woman who lost her job and relied heavily on her family's support.
Right.
But what really stood out to me was the emphasis on emotional intelligence, or EQ.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
EQ. It's a bit of a buzzword these days, but the thesis breaks it down in a really practical way.
Okay, because to be honest, I'm not always sure what people mean when they talk about EQ.
Well, it's not some fixed trait you're born with. It's
Yeah.
actually a set of skills you can learn and develop.
Really?
Yeah, just like learning a new programming language or a musical instrument.
Interesting. So what are those skills? Like, how do you actually build emotional intelligence?
Well, the thesis breaks it down into 5 key areas.
Mm-hmm.
Self-awareness, which we've already talked about.
Right.
Then there's self-regulation, empathy, social skills, and motivation.
Okay, so self-regulation. That sounds interesting. What's that all about?
It's like managing your emotions, especially in challenging situations.
So not just letting your emotions run wild.
Exactly. It's about recognizing when you're getting stressed or frustrated or angry, and then consciously choosing how you respond.
Instead of, just snapping at someone or exploding.
Yeah. It's about taking a breath, stepping back if you need to, and approaching the situation with a clearer head.
I could see how that would be useful.
The thesis even points to research showing that practicing mindfulness can actually strengthen those self-regulation muscles.
Oh, so it's like a mental workout.
Exactly. It builds your resilience so you can handle those curveballs life throws your way without completely falling apart.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh.
Okay, so we've got self-awareness, self-regulation. What about empathy? I always thought that was something you either have or you don't.
That's a common misconception. Actually, the thesis argues that empathy is a skill you can cultivate.
Really?
Yeah, just like any other skill.
Yeah.
It's about actively stepping into someone else's shoes, trying to see the world from their perspective, even if you don't agree with them.
So it's not just about being nice or agreeable.
Right. It's about understanding their emotions, their motivations, their experiences. And that can make you a better communicator, a better listener, a better collaborator.
That makes sense. Okay, so how do you actually get better at empathy? Like, are there specific things you can do?
The thesis suggests things like active listening, asking open-ended questions that encourage people to share their perspectives,
Cool.
and even reading fiction,
Reading fiction. Really? How does that help with empathy?
Well, apparently, stepping into the minds of fictional characters experiencing their joys and sorrows can actually expand your capacity for empathy in real life.
Hmm. That's fascinating. Okay, so we've got self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy. What about those social skills? Isn't that just about being a good conversationalist or knowing how to work a room?
It's definitely more than just small talk. The thesis defines social skills as the ability to build and maintain healthy relationships, both personal and professional.
Okay.
It's about knowing how to communicate effectively, resolve conflicts, constructively build trust and rapport, collaborate effectively.
Those sound like pretty essential skills for life in general,
They are, and they're especially crucial when you're going through a period of self-rebuilding.
because those relationships are your support system, right?
Exactly. They're your sounding board, your source of new ideas and opportunities. The thesis even argues that strong social connections can actually boost your physical and mental health.
Wow. So it's not just about feeling good, it's about staying healthy.
Right. It's about building resilience and creating a network that can help you thrive.
Okay, so we've covered self-awareness, growth, mindset, upskilling, and now the power of social and emotional strengths. What's left on our deep dive agenda?
Well, we can't talk about self-rebuilding without addressing those external factors that can sometimes feel insurmountable.
You mean like the stuff that's outside of our control?
Exactly, those systemic barriers that can make progress feel like an uphill battle.
Right, because sometimes it's not just about personal responsibility. There are larger forces at play.
The thesis dives into this head on, acknowledging that sometimes, no matter how much effort we put in the system itself, can be working against us.
Okay, so it's about recognizing those systemic barriers, but not just throwing our hands up in defeat.
Right. It's not about blaming the system and giving up. It's about understanding those barriers and then figuring out how to navigate them, challenge them, even dismantle them.
So it's about realizing that self-rebuilding isn't just an individual journey. It's a collective one.
Exactly. We're all interconnected,
Oh.
and working towards a more just and equitable world actually benefits everyone.
Welcome back to our deep dive into self-rebuilding. We've covered some seriously insightful stuff.
We have, from self-awareness and growth mindset to, those social and emotional strengths.
Right. And let's not forget those systemic barriers we talked about.
It's amazing how it all ties together, Each piece is like part of a bigger puzzle.
Absolutely. But now I'm really curious to hear about the practical side of things. Like, how do we actually implement these ideas in our own lives?
Well, the thesis offers a ton of practical tools and techniques,
Okay.
but the key is to tailor them to your own needs and goals. It's not about, trying to do everything at once.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. It's about creating your own personalized self-rebuilding plan.
I like that. So where do we begin? Like, what's a good starting point?
Well, the thesis mentions this technique called skill mapping.
Skill mapping?
Yeah. Have you heard of that?
I don't think so.
It's basically a way to identify the skills you already have
Okay.
and then figure out which ones you need to develop to reach your goals.
So it's like taking inventory of your skills.
Exactly. And then comparing that to what's in demand in your field or, whatever you're aiming for.
That sounds really useful, especially with the job market changing so fast.
It is. And there are tons of resources out there to help you with that research, like online job boards, industry reports, professional networking sites.
Okay, so skill mapping helps us figure out where we need to upskill. But what about those times when we face setbacks? Even when we're putting in the effort, how do we stay motivated and not get discouraged?
That's where that growth mindset we talked about comes in.
Right.
Setbacks are going to happen. They're part of the process.
It's true.
But it's how we view those setbacks that makes all the difference.
So instead of seeing them as failures, we see them as learning opportunities.
Exactly. It's about reframing those setbacks as feedback that helps us grow.
I remember the thesis mentioned something called a success journal.
Yes. That's a fantastic tool for staying motivated and cultivating that growth mindset.
So what is it? Like, how do you keep a success journal?
It's simple, really. Just regularly write down your wins, no matter how big or small.
Okay.
It helps you track your progress, celebrate your achievements, and remind yourself of how far you've come.
It's like creating a highlight reel of your own growth.
Exactly. And it can be incredibly powerful, especially when you're feeling discouraged or facing a tough challenge.
Okay, so we've got skill mapping, growth mindset, success journaling. What other practical tips does the thesis offer?
Well, remember how we talked about the importance of social and emotional strength?
Right. Those human connections.
The thesis actually gives some concrete strategies for building those connections and nurturing those relationships.
Like what?
Things like active listening, really paying attention when someone's talking.
Okay.
And effective communication, making sure you're expressing yourself clearly and respectfully.
Right.
And of course, building a strong support network, surrounding yourself with people who believe in you and support your goals.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to do this alone.
Exactly. And the thesis even suggests joining groups or communities that align with your interests and goals.
A professional networking group or a book club or something.
Yeah. It's about finding your tribe, creating those spaces where you can connect with like-minded people and support each other.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive, but before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on that final point from the thesis. The idea that sometimes the biggest obstacle is ourselves.
Ah, yes, that fear of change.
It's so easy to get stuck in our comfort zones.
But the thesis reminds us that embracing discomfort is where the magic happens.
It's where we grow.
Exactly. It's about recognizing those fears and then taking that leap of faith anyway.
And trusting that we have the strength to handle whatever comes our way.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening out there, remember this self-rebuilding journey. It's a continuous process. It's about learning, growing, adapting.
And embracing the adventure.
Exactly. So keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep reaching for your full potential. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.